Hello, friends, and thanks for joining us. I'm Josh.
And I'm Sarah.
And we are the Hiking Fools, guiding you through the trails of Glacier National Park with unique personal insight. And today, we take a little bit of a deviation from that, but we're glad to do it. We have a special guest in the studio again, Jim Williams, renowned wildlife biologist, among many other things. And we've been talking in a previous episode a lot about the wildlife and his work over the years in and around Glacier National Park. And, you know, we're going to get into today even a little bit more about what he's done personally and, you know, what we can do to support the efforts that he's started in this area, and kind of using this platform to talk a little bit about the organizations he's involved in. But Jim, reading the book, Sarah mentioned it too. There's a little bit of a story, The Path of the Puma, I should say. In the other episode, we talked a little bit about it, but a great book, The Path of the Puma. And Jim wrote that. It's got a story in there about Mount Cleveland, which is the highest peak in Glacier National Park. And we were curious, you know, did you ever get up there? What was your experience with it? How did it go for you? And what's it like?
Yeah, that story was fun to write, and it's quite the story because we started at Goat Hunt. Our little expedition. Jerry Brown was my wildlife biologist in Libya at the time, and he is older, but he was in incredible shape. He's built like Jack LaLanne, the old fitness guru in the 60s and 70s, and no one could keep up with Jerry, even though he was older than all of us. And so it was Jerry and I, and indeed, I could barely keep up with him, but we had 2 changes of clothes, and it's moist and dew and cold in the morning. So when we got through all the alder going up Cleveland on the east face, that's where the Cleveland 5, the tragedy occurred, and I wanted to see that area. It's kind of pay homage to that, and it's kind of a funny feeling, and it really was because we saw this place. But we had to strip down, put the dry clothes on above timberline, and it's about a 6,000-foot grind or something like that. But we got up just below the summit, and rocks started rolling around us, and a couple of them the size of a small car, and they were grizzly bears. And I thought, oh, dang, I forgot about the moss. And so we were surrounded by grizzlies and cubs. So we could see the summit, Karen, with the register, but we couldn't go over and sign it. And so, Jerry says, Mister, I'll never forget. He goes, this day's not meant to be. It's time for us to turn around. Well, we didn't see there was this incredible storm coming off the prairie. And so by the time we got down to the boat to take the boat back to Waterton, the boat captain, we were on the last one, and he goes, I wondered if you guys would make it, and the sky was turning black. He goes, you guys would have died up there if you would have stayed. So anyway, some things are meant to be. So have I climbed it since? No, and I think I'm never going to.
Just leave it as that,
You could almost say that counted. I mean, you were right there, and you could see the summit, Karen, but you got to sign the register.
I'm a little OCD with that, so it still bothers me in a stupid way, but it's a magnificent part of the park.
Yeah, great. We've done some backpacking that area and just viewing Cleveland. It just has a certain almost aura, special aura about it. Just knowing that it's the highest peak in the park, you're kind of drawn to it, or it draws you to it. And Sarah, we've had a couple of similar experiences. We've talked about on the show. In the mountains, in this area, you got to be prepared for anything because weather comes from where you cannot see it. It comes in quickly, and you got to be ready for rain and, definitely wind and often snow at some of these higher elevations. Sarah, we've been almost up Mount Jackson in a similar experience, a couple of times, right? We have not successfully done it, but we're going to be back.
Yeah, when you don't successfully climb a mountain, it kind of calls you consistently. You got to come back. But we did. We were hiking on the Climbers Trail, and we were just ready. We were headed towards the glacier, and we were just ready to go up the scree field where we needed to. And we saw a grizzly rather close. I think it was laying down. We were making noise. We were in a group of 5, and we felt safe. And but it came out, and it was going after huckleberries and ground squirrels. And we made our presence known. It saw us. We saw it. We decided, let's just bushwhack through this section here. And, the bear is doing its thing. And we got up to where the cliffs were, and storm came over. Mm-hmm. Of course, being a big mountain, that often happens. And so we got turned around, so we had to go back down the whole way down the scree field, which takes like an hour and a half.
It's a brutal field.
It's awful. We scanned the whole area down below, and we didn't see the bear. We ended up coming down where we were supposed to go up. And so we're hiking, and we were going to go back by where we originally saw the bear, where we didn't see it anymore, and we're making lots of noise. the bear had to have heard us. I don't know. And you can maybe explain the bear behavior a little bit more. But we were making lots of noise. We got probably 5 to 10 feet from it when it stood up. So we don't know if it was laying down and just, the bears in the park are used to people going away and, and nothing happened. Thankfully, we got out of there quickly, got out of its way. But we got some pretty incredible pictures from that. And a cool story, I guess.
It's totally memorable, and it is, you've got to have respect. We call ourselves the hiking fools, but don't be foolish out there. Be ready. Yeah. Give these large carnivores space, and be ready to, defend yourself as necessary. But boy, it goes down, in history as such an experience you'll never forget. Looking a bear in the face, hearing the bear growl, and Glacier National Park is a place where that can definitely happen.
Yeah, my bear biologist, buddies tell me that the bears kind of get used to people on the trails. It's when you're off trail, you can bump them. That can be an issue with us out with cubs, and that's why carrying pepper spray. Carry it works on everything. Works on people too. Told my daughter that. But I have a Mount Jackson story too, and it's a big peak. It's one of the top 6, but it's kind of a straightforward, scramble climb, kind of class 3. Not much, but it's just a big day from the east side, right? And I used to have my program managers when I was a regional director up here, and I had the warden captain, the fisheries program manager, and John Fraley was my I&E guy at the time. John's written a lot of books. Dear friend, John's a climbing fool.
Yes.
But so I had those 3, and I like to put them through a Sufferfest together, because there's nothing like bonding to go through a Sufferfest, and that one's a Sufferfest.
Yes.
And so we did that, and we planned everything right. Got in there early and made that scree field. Took forever, and then you finally hit the climb part and
the fun part.
There's some exposure, but the fun part. Get to the top. It's windy, and I got them all up there. And as you know, it's getting down is the issue with safety. But we signed that register late. I like to get off a big peak by 1 o'clock, so daylight is your friend. Right, we signed it at 2, which is late. So we turned around, took our picture, signed, did our little, fun bonding thing, and chatted and gave each other a bunch of flack, Anyway, just celebrated the moment. Looked at the geology of the park. When you look north from Jackson, you can see the geology connecting on all the peaks in the only way I've seen in the park. Looking north on a clear day, it's really cool. But so we get going down, and we're cruising on down. We get back down, go through that scree field, back down to Gunsight Lake, and we had stashed some Cokes, which you're not supposed to do, but it tasted so good.
You didn't hear it here.
Yeah, and in the cold water, and we made it out that day. Well, it turns out there was a tragedy unfolding up there, because another party had a couple individuals had summited way late at 6 o'clock. And we're coming off in the dark. And when we were climbing up, looking back at there's a couple snowfields and ice patches that are above the Jackson Glacier. Evidently, one of the individuals slipped and slid down, and an individual, went to help him and slid and didn't stop and went off and died tragically. And so we get back the next morning, and we had told everyone. Of course, I know the superintendent of the park and the chief ranger. We told them all, I'm taking staff up there. Everyone was like, was it you guys? And so a lot of people, it was kind of crazy. We're like, what happened? And we learned. And so there was a tragedy, and the only thing I think of is, I'm always super paranoid about getting off a mountain late and getting trapped in the dark, especially those big peaks. And some people do it all the time, right? And they were good climbers evidently too. But makes you appreciate that they're all good, and they're all fun, and they're all challenging, but they're all dangerous too.
Yeah.
And Glacier Park rock's kind of chossy. Mm-hmm. It's not granite, but that's a spectacular peak.
Check your holds. That is quite a story, and it can be tragic. This is a show where we talk about everything from Avalanche Lake to Sayi Pass and climbing some of the largest peaks in the park. So as you're listening, know your own fitness level, know your own skill level, and even that. We've heard so many stories of tragedies of people who really, really know what they're doing, and so you're not immune to that. And we just want to remind everybody, there's a lot of different types of experiences in Glacier National Park. Today, this episode, we're talking about some of the biggest adventures that you can have, but just understand what you're getting into, and you'll be fine, and go with other people, right? We have more to talk about for sure. We're going to take a short break, but stick with us. We've got another segment coming right up with Jim Williams.
As Josh and Sarah from Hiking Fools will tell you, a great hike starts with the right gear. And at Freedom Bank, we think great banking starts with the right team. From mobile check deposits to custom loan solutions, we're ready to help you succeed so you can spend more time on the trail and less time worrying about your money. Freedom Bank, big solutions, small town heart, member FDIC.
Welcome back. We are the Hiking Fools, and we have been discussing so much about Glacier National Park with Jim Williams, local wildlife biologist, becoming a good friend here in the studio and on the trails. And we want to get into a little bit more, a couple stories, places that we share and things that many of you might have experienced or are aspiring to, accomplish in the park. And one of those that we're discussing here as we talk about it is Rising Wolf Mountain over in the Two Medicine area. Sarah and I finally got up there this past summer in the complete fog and did encounter a grizzly. But we had a great time. And Sarah, it's an unbelievable peak that we have been wanting to climb for a while.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that we stuck to it. We had bad weather, we had rain. No prediction of rain is usually how it goes.
74 and sunny, it said, but our face was pelted with sideways rain.
Yeah, and as we were approaching the base of the mountain, because it takes you a while to get up there, it's quite the slog. Mm-hmm. We noticed that the clouds were getting lower, and it kind of engulfed the summit. So we figured we made peace with the fact that if we were to summit, we probably wouldn't see anything. So we knew that encountering a bear was a big possibility. It was, the peak of the season for the moths, and they love that. So we knew we were pretty close to the summit, and we were in the cloud. And
we were pretty sure 30 yards was visibility, which isn't the greatest. But you know what? We had endured so much to get there. But yeah, we could hardly see.
We could see the mountain itself was narrowing to a point. So we knew we were really, really close, and we wanted to push on. We had put up with so much, physically, and just came out of the cloud was a grizzly that was digging for moths.
Bear, she said. Josh, bear. Dude, I'm not very observant. I'm so glad she's with me usually, but there it was.
Yes, and right away I made note it was a grizzly, and which kind of changes things a little bit, and that's what you often see up there.
It had seen us and didn't seem more interested than was appropriate.
Yes. So it knew we were there, and we knew it was there. Yep. It didn't look like didn't look like it was a South Cubs, which also changes
no aggressive behavior. Or
yep.
anything.
And we always watch that. We watch the mannerisms of the bear when we encounter them. And we decided to trudge on. We gave it plenty of space, and we made it to the summit, spent 30 seconds up there, and gave it wide berth going down. And it was a great encounter.
Yeah, it was such a neat experience, and we just want you as a listener to hear Jim's story. He's got a great experience on Rising Wolf as well.
Yeah, I just started by saying it's incredible how much bears really want to avoid us. Think about the hundreds of thousands of visitors, Yellowstone Glacier, Grand Teton, and how few encounters happen. So they really do want to, avoid us. So another sufferfest. I had Dylan Tabish at this time. He had moved from the Flathead Beacon to Fish, Wildlife and Parks, and he's high energy and likes climbing. And I had John Fraley join us, Dylan had taken his job, and Eric Peterson, who did his graduate work on moths and grizzlies in Glacier, working under Dr. John Waller, and Franz Engelfinger, who is now the local biologist for Fish, Wildlife and Parks. And Franz is a beast. He's one of these guys that can hike.
I tell you what, I'm on Strava, and every segment that I think I did pretty well at or knocked out, Franz Engelfinger is always right above me.
Oh yeah. So I'm the slow person holding everyone back on this one. But we did Rising Wolf, and we picked. The issue was we started, and it was my design as a sufferfest to kind of get everyone together and have a great time in some wild places. But it was super humid. And it was very warm. And what I didn't expect is Dylan and I, and John a little bit, but Franz and Eric no. We started getting a little hot, and we drank all of our liquids on the way up. And that's a good, it's several thousand feet off that lake up. And, I get that kind of little bit of, all of a sudden you feel cool. It's like, that's a warning sign for heat stroke. And we're pushing it, right? This is a real physical thing to go up. And so anyway, we get up there and we finally, get to the ridge and we make our way to the summit. Eric's talking about grizzly bear, a couple females up there that had cubs. It sounds like you encountered one of them, and how tolerant they were, and where his quadrats were, where he was measuring the density of these moths these bears eat to put on fat for denning. And we get to the top and we're out of fluids, and Eric pulls out of his pack a surprise 6-pack of Highlander IPAs. It saved our butts. We rehydrated with a beer and never thought that would ever happen. But Eric had us taste these Maws. And of course, I thought it was kind of disgusting. It tasted like nuts, but I was dehydrated. My mouth was dry. And so we washed it down with this beer. And then we did the Flinch Skywalk to the pass, Dawson Pass, and then came back, and then it started raining. So we went, and we all got cold. So we went from almost heat stroke to hypothermia. And at the end, that's just Glacier Park.
Yeah,
you have
classic
to be
mountain.
prepared for everything. But that's a great mothing. And it's a neat place. If you think about the Blackfeet people and the names of the peaks and the stories, Rising Wolf is one of them. And it's neat to connect with the Blackfeet traditions and their story when you're on that side of the park.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. We've got so many stories that we could go on and on about, but Jim, I want to make sure we talk a little bit about some of the organizations that you're involved with, the land trusts in the heart of the Rockies, and just kind of what we can do, what the rest of us can do to, maintain and preserve these areas.
Yeah, it's a great question. So you can get involved. And locally we have, the Flathead Land Trust, right? I tell everyone, I was just back east talking to a bunch of foundations, and land trusts out west are the unsung heroes of conservation. They work with willing private property owners, whether it's a smaller property or a ranch, a family ranch, 4 generations, if they want to exercise their property right to keep it in food production or timber production or open space, that's a property right. These land trusts are who they work with to do what's called a conservation easement. And these are in perpetuity. And for me, it's motivating at my age because these projects will be here when I'm dead. So, it keeps me from retiring. And so the Heart of the Rockies initiative, who I work for, is very unique. I could have worked for probably 100 NGOs, and I jumped at them because we have a collaborative of 30 land trusts from Banff and Jasper down to about Jackson Hole, Bear River, and Sun Valley, and everything in between. There's 30 of them. Back east you can have 200 in a small area, but we only have 30, and they're large and small, from the Nature Conservancy to Trust for Public Land, or then you get the mid ones like Montana Land Reliance, to very small like Lemhi Regional and Salmon has 2 people. Paul Flathead Land Trust is relatively small, and so we get to support them. And as they have a project that represents wildlife connectivity, either a deer and elk migration, bighorn sheep, or let's say a carnivore connectivity for bears or lions or whatever, as a project overlaps with a biological, ecological value, we connect donors in our Keep It Connected program to the land trust to close the gap they need to close the easement. Because it's a land transaction that is either donated or costs money. Land conservation isn't cheap. So that's a really fun thing to do at this point in my career, is to help donors connect to these land trusts to help close projects that'll keep animals and people on the landscape, both. Working families on the land, too.
Yeah, coexisting. It takes work, but there's some great people doing that work, and it's our interests and yours to support those organizations. Jim, are there any other hikes, things that you want to mention? We've got some episodes on, should anybody go to another episode and say, I need to hear more about that? What do you like if you and Melora are out having a nice afternoon?
So Melora's a lot better climber than I am.
Wow, okay.
She is fearless, and I'll tell the story and she will laugh. So we did, and we ran into the entire Inglefinger family, by the way, on this climb. I had never done Clements, and it's up there, but it's got that scary goat ledge with 2,000 feet of exposure. And I am risk averse when I travel, and I'm risk averse when I climb. I'm probably too cautious. So we had some friends, and I told them to bring ropes. We can rope up across that ledge and be safe. And we got up there, and, it's kind of it's not bad. It's to get up there. It's going to the pass. But you get to that goat ledge on the north side, and it's, you slip, you're not going to be here anymore.
Yeah.
And so we get there, and we get the rope out, and they're all just looking at me like, really, Jim, in my life? And my knees were looking down, and they're a little shaky. I never had that happen in my life. But I'm looking at I don't like that. The free fall of 2,000 feet. Yeah. And so finally Mel's like, enough. Put the rope away, Lou. He's a glacier mountaineering guy and one of our buddies, and he's like 70, but he's just a beast. He was a Rainier guide for years. But anyway, we get out on that ledge, and you have to zen out in every step, and I'm being like overcautious. We get to the summit. It's unbelievable. We take pictures, and going back, it wasn't a big deal. But when I first hit that ledge, my knees got a little wobbly. Well, here comes family Inglefinger, the Cynthia and Franz and the kids. They didn't even hesitate. Boom, across that ledge. So anyway, it's some of those peaks in Glacier, and I love it that they're scary to me personally, because it really humbles you. We're a small part of this universe, very small, and you can feel it when you're on those climbs in the park.
Absolutely. Well, we hope we run into you on the trail again in the future. And same with all of you out there. We're the Hiking Fools, and check out our Instagram page at Hiking Fools MT to see some great photos of our recent adventures. And we look forward to seeing you out there. Tune in next time and check out more episodes online. Remember to follow us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And Jim, we thank you so much for being in the studio with us today.
It's a good time. I'm happy to come back anytime.
I envision this is part 1 and 2. I see a part 3 and 4.
Yeah, I'll give you a list of my former coworkers to interview. They all have better stories than me.
Oh, sure. Yeah, we'll talk to all of them. I'm Josh.
And I'm Sarah.
And we are the Hiking Fools, encouraging you to always go.